Hello everyone, in this video we're looking at the software development process. So, what is it? Well, a software development process is the sequence of steps we need to go through to get to a working piece of software. So we start up the top here with requirement specification, which kind of gives us a high-level description of what our software needs to do. And then we go down to system analysis, which is a more detailed description of exactly what our software needs to do, so some more detail. The system design, which is how our software is actually going to work, as in the steps that it needs to go through to complete each requirement. The implementation, actually writing the code. Testing, making sure our code works as it's supposed to. Deployment, giving the piece of software to the customer or end user. And maintenance, fixing problems that come up after the software's been deployed, maybe porting it to new operating systems and that kind of thing. Now, it's important to note that yes, while we start up in this corner and we end up down here, this is not a linear process. You'll note that the arrows go in both directions. In every stage through the process, there is a feedback loop. For example, if we're on the implementation stage, something might come up that we hadn't considered in earlier stages, or maybe there was a problem with our system design that we didn't realize until we actually tried to implement it. So that would involve going back and fixing the earlier stages and then going down and re-implementing the changes. So yes, although it does go in this direction generally, there is this feedback at each level. That's very important to note. So for the rest of this video, we're going to do a simple example. So let's have a look at the requirement specification for our piece of software. This software we're going to create must let the user enter the interest rate, the loan amount, the number of years for which payments will be made for a particular loan. And our software has to compute and display the monthly payment and the total payment amounts. So that's it for our requirement specification. But if we were going to go from this straight into code, there'd be some questions that we'd need to ask. This is not detailed enough for us to confidently go in and write some code. For example, we want the user to enter the interest rate. Well, what format is that going to be in? Is it a number which represents the annual interest rate? Does it have decimal points? And that kind of thing. The loan amount, is that in dollars or some other currency? Do we care about the currency at all? And the number of years, well, hopefully that's just a number, but we don't know for sure. We have to compute and display the monthly payment. Well, how do we do that? What exactly do we need to do to calculate that? When is interest compounded, for example? So this is a good start. It tells us exactly what our software is going to do, but it doesn't really give us quite enough detail to actually go and implement it. So let's go one step further and look at the system analysis for our piece of software. So now we're starting to get somewhere. We've got some equations here for calculating the monthly payment and the total payment amounts, which is really good. From this, I'm not going to go say this equation out loud because it's a bit confusing, but from this, I'm confident that we could write some code that would match this equation, and the same with this one. So now we're starting to get some information that we can actually use to write our software. But there's still a bit more detail that we need to know. We need to really know the steps that our software takes to actually perform its function. And this is where we start to get into the system design phase. So let's have a look at that now. Whoa, now we've got a bit more detail. The first thing our software is going to do is prompt the user to enter the annual interest rate, the number of years, and the loan amount. But there's more detail. The input for the annual interest rate is a number in percent format, such as 4.5%. The program needs to convert it into a decimal by dividing it by 100, and then obtain the monthly interest rate by dividing it again by 12. So we can shorten that by simply dividing by 1200 once. And it's got an example there for us to follow. We have to compute the monthly payment using the formula on the previous slide, and then calculate the total payment, which is the monthly payment multiplied by 12 and multiplied by the number of years, because there are 12 months in a year, and then we display that to the user. So with that, we've got enough information here, using this, to actually go about writing our software, which brings us to the implementation. So what I'm going to do is go over into Eclipse and create a new project, and we will call this calculate loan. Alright, and to this we will add a new class, also called calculate loan. Alright, so now let's start writing our code. The first thing we're going to do is create a main method. And now that we've done this, well, we're going to obtain input from the user. So we're going to need a scanner object to do this. So scanner input equals new scanner. And we're reading from system.in. Yes, system.in. Okay, so that's an error because we need to import it. And now our error should go away. Yep. So the first thing we're going to do is obtain the information that we were required. So the best way to do that is to first tell the user what we're expecting from them. So system.out.println actually, this won't be a print line, we'll just do a print so that the input appears on the same line. So now we will read that in, so we'll have a double. Okay, so what we can do now is very quickly, while we're dealing with the interest rate, is calculate the monthly interest rate. So we'll remember from the system analysis phase that we need to divide by 1200 to calculate that. Alright, so next up, we're going to get the number of years of the loan term. And again, I don't actually want a print line here. That's okay. So now we'll read this in, and it's just going to be an int. So int number of years equals input dot next int. All right. So next up, the loan amount, and I might actually copy and paste these two lines. All right. So and given an example, 120,000 and 95 cents. Alright, so this will be the loan amount. Reading in a double there. Awesome. So with that, we've done the first step from our system design. We've obtained the input from the user. So now we're going to do those calculations that we found out about in the system analysis phase. So the first thing we're going to calculate is the monthly payment. So double. And this is going to equal loan amount multiplied by the monthly interest rate divided by, alright, so we've got a bit going on here. So we open parentheses, 1 minus 1 divided by. So remember here that the division has precedence over this subtraction. So it's 1 minus whatever we think of next. And whatever we think of next is going to be divided by math.pow. So we're doing an exponent here. 1 plus the monthly interest rate. And then number of years multiplied by 12. And then we should have 2 closing parentheses there. Yep. So there's our equation. I might put a t on the end of this variable name. And now the total payment, which we know how to calculate. Simply monthly payment multiplied by number of years multiplied by 12. Okay, so there's that. Now, the next phase in our design is to print out that information. So system.out.println. Now, what we're going to do here is get rid of any decimal places that come after the second decimal place. So all we want to print out is dollars and cents. And the way we're going to do that is to typecast to an int, multiply our amount by 100, typecast it to an int, and then divide by 100. So what that's going to do is put the cents up in front of the decimal place, and then typecasting to an int will get rid of all the decimal points, and then dividing by 100 again will put our cents back to where they're supposed to be. I shouldn't have said that out loud. Monthly payment multiplied by 100 and then divide by 100.0. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing with the total payment. So I'm going to copy and paste the total payment is... Okay, and with that, there is our piece of software. So let's save that and run it and see how our program works. So, enter the annual interest rate. Let's actually follow this example. So 7.25. Enter the number of years as an integer, e.g. 5. Alright, let's put that in. Enter the loan amount. Well, let's put in exactly what our example said. I shouldn't have copy and pasted. I've got this % sign that doesn't belong. Oh, well, we'll fix that in a sec. Okay, so that, scroll down a little bit. So the monthly payment is $2,390.34, and the total payment is $143,420.53 based on a $120,000 loan. So what I'll just do is get rid of that. And now that won't print next time we run, but with that, that is our piece of software implemented. So that's really all we need to do for this video. We'd probably do some further testing. For example, we haven't considered things like if the user enters a negative number here, what is our program going to do? But that's enough for this video. We don't need to go and thoroughly test it. So just to summarize now, the software development process consists of the following steps usually. A requirement specification, what our software needs to do. System analysis, which provides supplementary information and more detail about how it needs to meet the requirements. The system design is kind of like a blueprint for our code. Implementation, actually writing the code. Testing it to make sure it works. Deployment, giving it to the end user. And maintenance, fixing bugs and that kind of thing. The important thing to remember here is that this is an iterative process and there is feedback between each step. So although we head in this direction, there's also some back and forth going on. So with that, that's it for this video. Thanks a lot.